Hello and welcome to Stateside Soccer Show. My name is Jordan. With me today is Logan. How are you today, Logan?
Jordan, I am fired up. I have been listening to all sorts of Pro Rel Nation League podcasts over the last couple of days. Friday, I was home. My wife was out shopping, thrift shopping. So I listened to a bunch of the Nation League stuff and like Pro Rel stuff and pretty much the state of U.S. soccer. Jordan is in the balance as we speak. So I'm
Pretty
pretty
much what
fired
this
up with this.
pretty much what this episode is about, right? We are going to be talking
Right.
USL promotion relegation. That vote went through. And we also have the Nations League disaster that took place on Thursday night. So we'll talk about those things as we go today. Okay. So I guess let's just dive in. We're going to start with the USL stuff. This is the stuff that this vote went through. I think it was after we were done recording on Monday, or like it was a Tuesday night vote. Yeah, I think it was a Tuesday night vote because Wednesday morning, while I was in the office, I'm listening to all these podcasts talking about it. So, yeah, Wednesday morning is kind of when everybody was reacting to it. Tuesday night vote, USL puts this out on Wednesday, saying that promotion and relegation has been voted on by the ownership, and it passed with a super majority, is what the Athletic said. Come to find out, we later learned that was 90% of owners ended up voting in favor of promotion relegation, which is a big number, especially after knowing that this vote was supposed to come in 2023 and got pushed because they just didn't have the support for it. So 2 years later, they now have the support. Actually, like a year and a half. It was like summer of 2023. So about a year and a half later, the vote goes through. Wednesday morning, USL starts putting out stuff on their social media that states how it's going to look. They don't really know everything on how it's going to look. I was also reading, I think it was a follow-up Athletic article that says that stuff is still to be determined when we're talking about will it have like a playoff system like overseas does for some of their leagues? Like how many spots are going up? How many spots are going down? That we don't know. But what we do know, Logan, is that it will have 3 tiers: the current USL League 1, USL Championship, and then the newly minted USL Division 1 that is launching as well, which we covered about like 2 weeks ago here on the podcast. So 3 tiers going up and down. Only USL, of course, is taking part of this. MLS is not taking part. NISA is barely actually a thing at this point. And USL League 2 is not taking part in this. And I have a reason on why I think that would be. But yeah, okay. So I guess let's get your thoughts on what happened when I sent it to you late Tuesday night. So I think you saw it Wednesday morning. When you wake up and see promotion and relegation is coming to the States, one of your first questions that you asked when we did our get to know MLS in 2021 or whatever, when you
Yeah.
were joining the podcast.
Yeah. I think because like as an outside observer of the sport in the United States, I'd watch Premier League and some Bundesliga and Liga MX, La Liga. And I've watched some Ligue 1 and all those European leagues. And Jordan, they all have promotion and have had promotion for hundreds of years. So it's not a new thing to their systems. So that was the first thing I wanted to know, is because it does put consequences. And that's the one thing I will argue with the United States sports leagues. There are no consequences for sucking. They're actually rewarded for sucking, which has been a big struggle for team or leagues like the NFL, NBA, MLB. What stops a team from tanking it for an early draft pick? I do feel like MLS struggles with that because a lot of times you're not finding gold out of the college level athletics and soccer yet, and some like hit or miss. But those first round picks oftentimes don't end up making an MLS roster. So there was never any kind of consequences for U.S. sports. And I thought maybe, hey, soccer has something different because they have all these leagues over here that I've heard so much about. I grew up in Charleston, and the Charleston Battery, Jordan, are one of the most well-known clubs in USL and lower tiers soccer. I love Battery games. Like,
The oldest continuingly
yeah,
run club in Major League Soccer. It's 1993.
yep,
That they're like the oldest club.
yeah. So like historically, I've always loved watching them. I always thought it was a lot of fun, and I never really paid attention to MLS. The only thing I knew about MLS growing up was that my neighbor liked the LA Galaxy. Go figure. Yeah, exactly. So, Jordan, my first question to you was, yeah, Pro Rel, and now it's landed on our shores, and I felt like the conversation was going to be had, and I felt like there was a good opportunity for it to come over here. I think as the day went on and the days have gone on, my thoughts have kind of formed off of different things that I've listened to and just kind of thinking about it realistically. I love, Jordan, the idea of Pro Rel. When you texted me that initially, I was excited. But then as I started to think through things, I'm not excited anymore. So we'll get into that. I know we'll discuss it. I would say that I would be excited if they could figure this out, but I just don't think that they're here to figure this out. I think this is more of a bump in the road, a challenge, and an obstacle, rather than it's going to be them willing to work together to actually bring promotion and relegation over here successfully and doing it correctly. So that's where my foundation is going to be set up. But what about you? What were your thoughts when you first saw it?
Excitement. I mean, so look, I'll say I was probably really excited. I did, read and watch some things. I sent you some videos of
Yeah.
stuff that maybe pulled me back off the like, this is going to be the greatest thing ever type of thing, of course, just because it was so exciting. I've not even been one that's been an advocate for Pro Rel
Yeah.
because I didn't think it could work in the sense of Major League Soccer. Now, having a new structure like USL have Pro Rel, I think is exciting. And at first, I always thought that would be cool anyway. Like, hey, you have League Two, you have League One, you have the championship. Why not send clubs up and down this thing? I think what takes it to another level with me on why I'm excited for it is because I never thought they would even try to do a Division One in the States for USL. So for me, it always seemed like the most we would get is tier 2, 3, and 4 having Pro Rel, but MLS always being closed off. The fact that USL is launching the Division One on top of adding Pro Rel, I think is what makes me really excited about it. Now, will it work? That's something we'll have to talk about here on the show and see it actually play out throughout the coming years. But the good thing is they're not saying this is starting this year or next year. They have some time. 2028 now is the deadline for them to have a League One and to do Pro Rel. So I think that'll be kind of something to look forward to in the next 3 years here of what progress are we making, right? They're going to add new clubs. They're looking for new investors in any of the levels, but they definitely want some new clubs probably in that Division One. How do you handle that when you say, hey, yeah, we're going to grant you a Division One team in 2028, but you might also fall down to the championship if you suck, right? Like, but we've seen overseas American businessmen go and buy into those lower level clubs because they know it can get them higher up. Now, of course, the issue with this, I think, is that we don't have what the Premier League has, right? So, like, what is the benefit of playing in USL Division One? We don't know yet, right? They're going to work on probably new TV deals. They're probably going to work on all of this stuff. The fact that they don't have a great TV deal is actually what allows them to do this. They don't have to worry about breaking any sort of TV deal through this. They have the CBS deal, but it's not like, it's not as long term as 2028, I don't think. But like if MLS tried this with their Apple deal, Apple would be like, whoa, there's a chance we might miss the LA market. We might miss the New York market if these teams suck. Like that might be something where Apple would be like, we're going to break the contract, right? But since USL is so dependent on game day revenue, it allows them to do this. And it maybe minimizes the risks a bit here, where if a team falls to the championship or falls to League One, those fans are still showing up because they're the local club in town. So I was excited for it. I think that this is going to be, for me, it's a why not, right? Sure, like you have to differentiate yourself from MLS in the market if you're going to try to grow your league. And the way to do that is to become, and you can brand it like this, and this is what they did. We're the first league ever in American sports to have promotion relegation. And you're going to draw some of those fans that have been pushing for pro rel. You're going to draw maybe some of those businessmen from overseas to try to invest in your clubs. Now that there's an open system, they can buy a League One team and try to work their way up in investing in U.S. soccer. Because here's the other issue on why I think they have to do this as well is there's probably a lot of markets and teams that want to get started but can't because the buy-in price for MLS now, Logan, is $500 million. And there's not a lot of people out there that have that type of cash.
Speak for yourself, man.
Yeah.
If I had 500, I would be buying a club. So
I remember when it was like 200 million because I used to think if I won like the big lottery jackpot, I would buy Baltimore a team in MLS. Now it's 500 million. I'd have to win like the $1 billion jackpot, and I still wouldn't have enough. I'd still have to get investors.
Right. No, Jordan, if either of us win the Powerball, I'm totally in on. We've already talked about this on buying a sports club. We just had to be very.
Well, now we can buy the USL League One.
There you go. That's our ticket in.
And then work
at
our
a
way
premium in one of these cities that are a little bit of a smaller city. Like I love a good small city, so there's a lot of them out there.
But yeah, so that's kind of where I sat with it. So I guess I don't know how you have your notes structured. I don't know how you want to go about this discussion, but
I guess we can use some of the USL framework because they put out something on their website that kind of sets up a good, like kind of a why this is a good idea kind of thing. Since you're pro relegation.
I'm pro relegation.
Yeah, pro relegation. I guess we can use that structuring to kind of set us up. So for for this first one, how why is USL making this move now kind of thing. I think that's going to be something that we'll have to talk about as far as kind of like why does USL see this as the opportunity now. And 100% this is on the heels on the doorstep of the World Cup coming to the United States, right? I think USL sees it as a good tape measure to kind of see what that can look like in some of these markets that they're considering. So just kind of like setting it up that way to start. I think that's why USL, unless you have anything else to add, but I think that the reason why this is happening now is because they feel like the popularity in the US, it probably won't be as, it'll be at the peak and at the climax of its popularity in this country in the next couple of years. So that's the reasoning in behind it, is that's why USL, just to kind of go off of what you were just saying and then kind of launching into the debate side of it. The US, Jordan, this is the prime opportunity for teams. And that's why you're starting to see some of these clubs pop up. I think that's why expansion, the US will be able to use kind of that idea of, do we bring in Indy 11? Do we bring in a team somewhere else like Vegas? Like, where do we put our next couple of teams? How can we judge that? And I think it'll be based off of what happens, as far as popularity in the country, as far as World Cup's concerned. So just kind of launching into that, Jordan. I mean, what do you, I guess, what do you see are the pros of this? Because I've got a lot of thoughts on why this is a negative thing for U.S. growth in soccer. Why do you see it kind of as a positive, like building off of World Cup? This will be coming into 2028, World Cups in 2026. Like, what do you see as far as being the pros of bringing in another Division 1 to, and this is 100% like to compete with MLS. And I know you might disagree with that, but the statement in which McDonough made, who's the president CEO of USL, the statement 100% is a direct shot at MLS, saying we will have competitive games because you guys refuse to bring in promotion and relegation.
Well, it's not that I don't think it is a like USL trying to take down MLS.
Yeah.
I think it's MLS is just going to kind of not be bothered by this until they start maybe seeing actual ramifications. It's like if you and I started a new baseball team in Baltimore,
Yeah.
the Orioles won't see us as real competition until we start drawing
Right.
fans, right? Like, and drawing stuff away from them. So for USL, I think this is absolutely a way for them to stand out in the soccer market in America. And I'll push it back on you here in a second when you said, like I said, that first time we were having this conversation about MLS and stuff, and you asked, do you ever see promotion relegation coming here? Is it already here? Right? The general soccer fan in America is already predisposed to pro rel from leagues overseas. And not only that, but there was TV shows like Welcome to Wrexham and Ted Lasso that explain promotion relegation. So now imagine you're a casual fan who watched Ted Lasso and you're like, you know what? I'm going to actually get into this soccer stuff. And then you find out your MLS team actually doesn't participate in pro rel. And maybe then you're like, oh, it's not as much at stake. Now, for the American fan, I can understand why MLS did this, right? 1993, we had really no soccer league that had lasted since the NASL back in the 70s and 80s when the Cosmos were there and all that. And they went bankrupt trying to bring over the biggest stars, and they had no spending rules, all of that type of stuff. There's been soccer instability in this country since we continue to have first divisions fold. Now I feel like we're in an actually good spot where you have MLS prospering. The USL is entering markets and doing very well right now. And we're starting to see some maybe like soccer is growing over here, right? We see the stats and the surveys all the time of soccer is the number 2 sport among like the younger crowd, right? And that it is continuing to grow. All of those people, if they're watching the overseas league, already know how pro rel is. So I think not necessarily that that's going to draw people all the way, but there will be some people that are purists that say the MLS is not real soccer because they do not open themselves up to where we can buy in a club, and it is more corporate, right? There will be people that will say, this is what we've wanted. And there will be people that go and support that because of that reason, I think. Pro rel. It also allows you to have the opportunity to maybe find new investors in your club that was maybe stuck in USL League One, but now you have the pathway to Division One and being an actual first division club on par with MLS. Now, of course, the gaps in quality are still going to be there, but if US Soccer sanctions USL Division One as a proper first division, they would be even with MLS in the eyes of the football world, in the sense of they're both first division leagues. And you might get people overseas, I'm not even really saying players, but investors that say, oh, if we want to get a first division club, instead of paying $500 million, which is probably going to end up being $1 billion at some point for MLS, entry fee, we can pay, let's say, maybe $5 million to enter League One and then work our way up to Division One. And I'll tell you, they have to do something about these names as well when they restructure. But, anyway, you can't have League One and then also have a division called Division One. Like, call it Premier, call it something. But they keep calling it Division One right now. But, that is kind of, you can draw investors that way. You might even be able to get some of those American investors to invest here instead of going overseas and investing in, like, a Wrexham. You might be able to have people investing into clubs here instead, because now that $500 million fee is no longer a thing, because you can work your way up to Division One that way. Division One should be granted at least one CONCACAF Champions Cup spot now. Like, we see that in the Canadian Premier League. They have a spot, even though our Canadian teams in MLS have opportunity to get in there. So they should have a spot, at least one, I would think, going forward. Maybe the cup winner would be able to have a spot. And I think the biggest thing now is that they will be able to enter markets that MLS has ignored as MLS slows down expansion. I know you asked me this in the text of like, what's stopping MLS from just going into some of these markets and just taking their clubs. I also saw somebody put I think it was a comment or a tweet that I was commenting on. Yeah, commenting on. Somebody said, well, MLS can just go and like to the 4 best USL markets and give them sweetheart deals to kill this. And I don't think they will. And the reason why is because if you give them a sweetheart deal, Logan, instead of 500 million, you're paying 250 million. That's actually devaluing your clubs and a franchise spot in your league. And I don't see MLS being like, well, at one point it was 500 million, but now it's 250 million just for you to enter. Like, that looks bad in the eyes of corporate world. You know, it makes sense maybe soccer wise, but corporate world wise, that would be like, you're devaluing our brand and our franchise spot.
It's a half price.
So that's not going to happen. And I really only see maybe 2 more spots that MLS can fill to have 32 teams. And then at some point they got to stop, unless if they also plan on having an MLS 1 and an MLS 2. But the issue with that is you sold all of these people and you took $500 million to say you're having a top flight club. And now you're asking them to not have a top flight club. And that's where MLS has put themselves in this pickle that USL hasn't, where now USL can sell the pro rel dreams, where if MLS does want to do that, they have to really change NFL owners' minds. And those are the people that are the reason they structured this league like the NFL is because it made money and because it would be cheaper for them to do and not lose money. Of course, they have lost money. All these owners have, but imagine now, like, now that the entry fee is 500 million, if one of these clubs are selling themselves, if the LA Galaxy ended up trying to sell their club, they would be worth a lot of money, more than what the original owner put in. So there's that type of wrinkle to it too, where I think USL can take advantage of this and enter in some of those markets that will never, ever be met with MLS. And I think also we've talked about the next pro side of it too, but the next pro side of it is right now, all of those clubs, most of those clubs have their second team playing in the same stadium. So they're not even really getting any expansion of the market there. I talked about, maybe Philly should do Wilmington for Philly too. Some teams do, like Seattle's Tacoma Defiance is, in Tacoma instead of in Seattle, but most of the clubs don't right now. And those markets are still really close to the main market. USL can go into any market they want that doesn't have teams, even that don't even have professional teams. Here's a stat I'm going to read to you, Logan. And then I'll give it back to you here, but you may have seen this last night. The Oakland Roots had 26,000 fans in attendance for their home opener. They're taking over the Coliseum now that the A's have left. So 26,000 fans show up to the Oakland Roots in USL Championship. This is the first season they can really play at the Coliseum because now the Oakland A's have left. Before they were playing at a smaller venue. If you look at the A's attendance in 2024, average attendance was 11,000. 10,000 in 2023, 9,000 in 2022, 8,000 in 2021. Those are almost the numbers that the Roots were drawing even before they got into the Coliseum. So now you're having the Golden State Warriors have left Oakland, right? Now they only play in San Fran, right?
Mm-hmm.
You've had the A's have left. The Raiders have left. San Jose is a Bay Area market. And so this also shows that you can have a club nearby in MLS, San Jose, but you can also still draw 26,000 in Oakland. And I think this is the type of market you should be targeting. And this is what MLS should have been targeting before, when and they kind of did, like when the Rams left St. Louis, they're like, oh, let's kind of talk to St. Louis about entering the league, right? You should be entering leagues that like MLB teams have abandoned, NFL teams have abandoned. The owners have done them dirty. The fans want to stick it to them and go support a local club. And we see in Oakland that is happening right now with the Roots. So there are ways, and they didn't even have to build a new stadium. They were just able to take over an old one that the A's have abandoned, So it's not even like they have to like build a brand new stadium. 26,000 fans show up to this Coliseum, which means a lot to the Oakland fans. This stadium is a big deal there. But yeah, so I cede it back to you if you want to, take on any point I said, but that's what I see the pros as.
Yeah. I mean, here are my cons, and all of them are cons. And I do want to preface this in saying that I think the first thing that I want to say is it really depends on what USL wanted to be compared to MLS, and they want to be a competitor. So now that enters a whole different realm. And I know people be like, well, they don't want to. No, that statement that he made was directed at MLS saying, you do not want to do pro rel. We do. We are going to have the more competitive games. If you want to see a competitive game with real stakes, you'll watch our league. There's no other reason to enter Division One unless you have that idea in mind. So here's my thing. MLS one will not let this happen. They will take over cities. Indy 11, Jordan, they have the investment group ready to go. They're just going to gobble up Indy 11. So there goes one of their biggest markets. Las Vegas.
They won't gobble up Indy 11. They have a new, I think they have a new ownership that's separate from Indy 11.
Yeah, but the investor group that's coming in saying to Indianapolis, saying, we want a team in Indianapolis. And once that happens, that dissolves Indy 11. So right away, you're going to have Indy 11 taken. Las Vegas Lights, I imagine you'd be next. So those are two of the biggest teams in USL. They already swallow those up. So there's 32 teams for MLS. This is a closed system too. This is not an open system. So people that keep saying, well, this is perfect. This is like the Premier League. This is a pay to play. It's exactly how MLS is. There's nothing different about it. Like, you cannot enter this league as an amateur team. You cannot enter this team as a national, like the National League exists, where you have a semi-professional team that could enter the pyramid. You cannot do this. This is a pay to play. This is not what this is not your mom and dad's Premier League. So that's one argument. Two, I still think, looking at it, Jordan, that this league will not grow fast enough, so you'll only have one team getting promoted and relegated to start this for the first probably, I don't know, 5 to 10 years. That doesn't entice me. That's not high stakes enough. That's one team going up and down, and it's going to be the lowest quality team out there that doesn't have fans or doesn't have the revenue. So this is, I mean, ultimately you're going to be plucking these teams that can barely exist off, and they're going to be going up and down. They're going to be losing media rights. They're not going to get the same support. The media companies are not in agreement. They do not do what the Premier League has or what Bundesliga have. If you know anything about those, the TV rights from their big media deals gets trickled down, where they have the governing body that will trickle down money from the Premier League. The Premier League makes money. They give some of that money. It's a socialistic environment, where in the United States, socialism is something that is completely frowned upon. You got some of these smaller cities that are going to go, I don't want to share. Like, that's not fair. Like, 26,000, good in Oakland. But if you're playing a team in, Nebraska, they're going to be pulling in 1,000 people to pay for their. It doesn't make any sense. Like, there's going to be such a huge problem with the gap and the disparities between teams. They're just going to squash the other teams. So, and here's the other thing too, is like, when I talk about that, when you've got big market teams and other sports, Jordan, they carry the league. LA, New York, Atlanta, Seattle, like, they all carry these leagues. They don't have that option in USL. I think the biggest city that they're probably in is the Oakland area. Like, that's a small city compared to a New York, a Seattle, Atlanta, who's going to bring in these big TV deals. So you're never going to have a big city ever. Like, MLS will not let you come into New York, and MLS will not let you come into Atlanta. They won't let you come into Miami. And you might say, well, they're not the ones that decide that. They are 100% the ones that decide that, because you've got the governing bodies over these NFL teams that put all this money into these cities, that are going to go to their board of trustees, go to their community, go to their government and say, that should not be allowed. They should not be allowed in this. You're competitive. Like, it's going to be a competitive aspect between these two. USL and MLS can never exist together. It's just not possible. Like there's no other league in the United States that's a tier one because the other leagues would not allow it. They would stomp you out so quick.
Well, there is
And
actually one. I will say that the women's league, the USL
yeah,
owns one, and NWSL both have top flight.
right. But that being said, Jordan, like NWSL, out of all the ratings across the board, WNBA's got higher ratings. The women's soccer leagues don't really have the ratings that they would necessarily need to exist on their own as far as what we're looking at right now. NWSL has teams fade all the time. So until they become an established league who stay permanent, who have these teams for 10 plus years, new NWSL is brand new. They're not competing with any of these other leagues yet. They will get there. They will compete with like the WNBA, the NBA, MLB. Like NWSL will be bigger than the MLB. I almost guarantee it, but they're not there yet. So I think my argument is that the fact that like football is popular in those other countries. It is the most popular sport in all the world, but in the United States, it's the lowest on the totem pole. So you're not going to pull in some casual fan to watch the Pittsburgh Riverhounds or whoever it might be to go, you know what, I want to watch them instead of watching baseball, golf, NCAA. Like we just witnessed this watching the U.S. men's national team. People aren't at the game because, and that's the team I think that's the most popular soccer team in the United States. If you polled, that's the most popular sport or team to watch, and they don't play that often. Like it's just. I think that's where you run into an issue. In other countries, you have these media deals that help the other smaller clubs. But with Apple on their side, MLS getting some broadcast rights with Fox, CBS, like they've got these deals. They also will go to these other media because it's a competitor. And competitors in the United States, Jordan, as we've learned, will try to stomp each other out. The MLS is going to be actively pursuing ways to knock down ML or USL. Like they will. There's no benefit in it for them. Like there's no benefit in USL for MLS because MLS is going to prohibit their players from playing USL. They do not and will not want to compete in leagues with USL unless FIFA decides that they're going to compete. And then by that, the USL will then become a rival with MLS. It's going to divide the sports fans because you've got the romantics that love this idea of promotion and relegation, Jordan. But it's because they're so infatuated with the idea of Wrexham. If their team Arsenal or Everton or Chelsea, and look at that, like the United States fan, the typical Premier League fan, Bundesliga fan, they like the big clubs. Their clubs are never getting relegated. Like Everton's the only one that's ever been tempted to try to get relegated, but it is not the biggest team that's followed over here. Arsenal, Man City, Chelsea, Man United, Liverpool, like those teams aren't getting relegated. So yeah, of course the US loves that idea of all these cute teams come up and get knocked back down and our big clubs knock them all back down. There's not a lot of fans out here, Jordan, that are liking Southampton from the United States. And if they are, it's a very select few. So they're not really worried about promotion relegation. The idea that an American owner is taking Wrexham up to Premier League is adorable. And he will get to that point. And I think Wrexham will be a Premier League club. But then again, people are not going to support a team. It's just never worked that way. Like the United States fan, sports fan, has never supported an off league. They've never supported an off team. Like it's just hard to get around this idea that USL is going to be allowed to exist because MLS will see it as a competitor in cities around them that they will not enjoy being around them because a Miami or Orlando City fan, Jordan, they're going to want to capture that Jacksonville audience, and Jacksonville wants a USL team. So it's like, what do you do? MLS is going to overreach and say, hey, no, watch us instead. Don't watch that stuff. Like, don't watch them. They're not going to get any of their youth players. The MLS will be like, you know what? No, you can't have any. If you play for USL, you cannot play for MLS. Like, that's just going to be a rule. There's going to be many things set up that MLS will try to get hurdles in front of USL players to be like, don't go to them. Like, do not go to them. If you want to play in our league, do not go to USL. So there's just so many things that are working against this. You're talking about sponsorship as well. Gatorade, Body Armor, all of them, Delta, United Airlines, like they'll support the European leagues, but they're only going to support one league here in the United States because MLS will say, we want a non-compete agreement. We want you to agree to advertise for us, but do not support USL. And USL is not going to make enough money for those sponsors anyway. So MLS is going to be like, well, we're going to make you more money, so come work with us. And they're like, okay, sure. And people are like, well, these USL clubs survive on local. They can only do that for so long. Like, there's maybe a handful of cities that can really support a major franchise like this, and you see it across. There's a reason why there's not a top tier team in Nebraska, Omaha. Like, I'm sorry, but there is a reason why these small markets do not get big professional teams, is because the United States will not support them. So that's just my argument. Like, I just don't feel like USL's going to have any kind of success becoming I'm not even sure they get it off the ground. Like, I would be shocked if they get a Division I club team league off the ground, just because I just feel like there's so much working against them. I do have a proposal for them, but it involves getting in bed with MLS. So there's just so much working against them. I just don't see where this is going to work. Like, media rights, ESPN, and they'll be like, nope, if you want to work with MLS, you do not work with USL. And ESPN is going to go, okay, cool. You make more money, so we're going to go work with you. And people are like, well, no, they'll work with both. I'm like, they work with both now. I'm like, yeah, because they're not competitors, nowhere close to competitors. You've got a niche league that a lot of fans in small markets like, and then you've got the big league where everybody supports in the United States. And there's a romantic side of it that you see on X. All the people on here watching MLS are the romantics for soccer, but you're never going to capture a casual fan of soccer by having two separate leagues operate at the same time.
See, so here's my inherent belief is I think you're being too pessimistic in the sense of, I don't even know if pessimistic is the right way here. MLS can't do what you're saying. Okay,
they can restrict players from coming into their league. Yes, they can.
But why would you want to restrict the players that come into your league? What if that USL player is tearing it up and he wants to make the move to MLS?
What college player is going to go to USL? Like, what college?
They already have. They've been going to USL
because they're not good enough to play in MLS.
No, there's some that go there instead.
They're not good enough to play in MLS.
No, listen a second here, okay? Some of these players have decided to instead pick their USL club and then go transfer overseas because they have control. MLS clubs are not letting these players pick where they're going next the way that USL does, because USL is part of the open market when we're talking about transfers. Because it's not single entity, they do not have this whole thing of, oh, we have to sell this person to the highest bidder and we have to get them there. Like, it works like any other transfer market where the player has to agree to terms with the club they're being transferred to. Unlike MLS, where they can just ship them out. Like Jack McGlynn, who got transferred to Houston when he wanted to go overseas. His dad was talking about this on a podcast. And they don't hold any grudge with Philly about that because they're like, hey, it's a business deal. We understand it. But the issue is, if Jack was in control of that, he would have picked the overseas option. If we've seen college kids instead pick USL and then after a year or two pick their club overseas when they're doing very well, instead of making the jump to MLS because MLS would want to hold on to them for too long or would end up not shipping them out. There used to be times where MLS would try to nix deals of them going overseas because it didn't meet their valuation of the player and the team wanted to sell them. But the league itself says, no, we can't sell a player like that for this amount of money. So having that ability, I think, for the college kids, it makes more sense than getting drafted. You get to control where you're going. You get to control where you live, just like you do on the rest of the stage of world soccer. Right now, MLS is not even dealing with ESPN. So in that case, it's like, who cares, right? Like, ESPN would be like, you're on Apple. Why would we even care about you right now? So I don't see that being an issue. And the sponsorships, the companies are going to want to sponsor as much as wherever they can. I don't think they're going to be drawing a line in the sand with like, it's got to be MLS or not, because they will promote their product anywhere that they can, because they want to sell the product. They want to sell their business. So I don't think MLS has that type of sway over businesses. If they did, MLS would be in a much better spot than they currently are, where some teams didn't have shirt sponsors for years because they couldn't figure out a deal. Like, I don't know. I think that you're looking at it as if this was a team, like a league entering the NFL space. MLS is not at that level yet. MLS has no say the way that they can. And because MLS is part of FIFA and FIFA does have some contingencies here, I think that, and US Soccer, they're beholden to US Soccer as well. So if US Soccer grants them D1, they have to roll with it. They can't really put any pressure uh, on it the way that like an NFL team or MLB does. They don't have like a USL team can enter an MLS market. That is something that is not prohibited from US Soccer. So it's not the same as like when we have like the Nationals, when they came in, they had to get approval from the Orioles owner because that was part of the Orioles market and it created this whole shit show. They don't have to do that because of the way that US Soccer is run. Oh, I did so well, he left the show. My point is just like MLS is not at that level. Like if baseball, they have those type of things in place where there can't be any of those competitions. Soccer does not have that. We've had NASL and USL teams in New York, in some of these other markets that exist already, that would, in a baseball market or a football market, be considered part of their market. But we have those teams already there, and they are drawing, well enough to survive. And the whole reason why they're not going to do League Two is because that's 100 some teams in League Two, and they're like semi-pro teams in League Two. So that's kind of why I figure that they're not going to have promotion from there. You're not going to have enough of those ownerships that can afford to do these things. That's why they're giving them these head starts. I think that I don't know. I would be very surprised if we get your version of events where the MLS draws that line in the sand and all the companies bow to them like they're the soccer overlords. Now, if the Premier League did that, I feel like they would have to bow to them because more people watch that than MLS here. But I just find it hard to believe MLS would even have that type of carry with anybody.
I mean, you're talking about NFL owners, though. Like, there are a lot of
Only some,
NFL
though.
owner,
They're
yeah,
not like
but they're the big boys. Like, they're the ones. I mean,
they're
you
the ones
can't.
that actually don't spend anything on their
Yeah.
clubs.
Well, I mean, but
Craft.
again, it's like I don't imagine that MLS is going to see this in a good way. They won't let their players talk about USL. Like they just won't. They won't. They'll be like, you know what? Let's promote our league, and maybe they don't restrict that, but maybe it's like, hey, let's not talk about
But do
USL.
the players need to talk about USL?
No, because this is a much better product. Like Jordan, you can't tell me that a league, carried by they're my club, but like the Charleston Battery's not carrying a league. Like Paramount, cool, like it's a cute system, but there's no evidence that a small market league can carry here in the United States. There's a reason why MLB doesn't have any competition. The NBA could have competition, but they don't. NFL doesn't have competition because they would stomp that out. The NHL had the EHL and they put them underneath them. So it's like, where on earth does that actually work? It's in Europe because it's a socialistic economy where they're used to giving money to each other, where they're used to sharing the wealth, where it's not all about capitalistic gains. You're talking about the United States, where I think so many people, there is no evidence, none at all, where this actually works. Like there's no sharing of financials with anybody. You're going to have these teams try to exist. Like, for instance, a Pittsburgh team and a Philly team, and that Philly team is going to want to draw Pittsburgh fans. There's no way that they're going to not try to overstep and say, hey, watch us instead of them. Because then again, you've got the competition thing of they're going to play on the same day. They're going to play Saturdays. Well, that's where MLS plays, and that's where their airtime is. And Fox is going to go, hey, we want to work with both. And MLS is going to go, hey, no, that's not what we agreed on. There's no way that a capitalistic league in the United States of America allows another competitor share any kind of revenue with them. It's different right now because they don't have money in those markets. They don't have any say. And to be honest, the quality of product's not there. Like sickos are watching, people that like soccer are watching USL. and MLS. People that are a casual fan, or even myself who covers this league, I do not watch USL. Like some randomly, I'll turn on the battery and watch them, but it's not really something I'm like, oh, I got to go watch my battery game. I just don't do it because I don't have the time to watch MLS, MLB, March Madness, NBA, NFL, NWSL, and WNBA. Like I just don't have time. And that's where USL is going to run into an issue is because casual fans already do not care about soccer in the United States. More people will tune into a Premier League game in England because it is a better quality product. There in and of itself will help you understand that people will have no interest in USL outside of those USL markets. They will only care about the top product, and that will always be MLS, and that will always be the Premier League. And people that really like it, I'm sure you can go enjoy a USL game. And I'm not trying to foo-foo on the ML or USL. I think it's a good league, but I don't see where they can coexist as a Division One competitor against MLS, who's been established for decades now and is trying to grow. I actually think it hurts because it's going to put fans that they're going to pit them against each other. Right now, they're not because they're not seen as a threat. But as soon as USL becomes kind of a threat to MLS, you're going to have fans say, oh, well, I'd much rather walk down the street from my pub to watch the Charleston Battery than your stupid Charlotte FC.
We already get
It's going to
that.
become like, yeah, but it's going to become even worse. Like it's going to become even more so because you're going to have players, maybe they do steal a player and go, hey, that's our player. And like, nope, sorry, we're going to sign him and you can't have him. And we're going to get him. And then it becomes like this pitted rivalry. And you already have it some, but you're really going to have it now where it's USL versus MLS, and that does not help the growth of US soccer. That actually hurts the growth of US soccer because USL is going to allow its players to just up and leave whenever they want, and MLS won't. Like it's going to create this tension between players and leagues, players and agents, world soccer versus USL and MLS. Like it's this idea of they cannot coexist. I've never believed any league could coexist with another professional league. It doesn't happen anywhere in the world except for the United States with the two women's leagues. Like it
Because we're
just
the
doesn't.
biggest. I
Right.
I
And
think
I
that
get
would,
that.
yeah, I think that
But
helps.
it does because there's 300 some odd million. There's so many people in this country. But again, I don't have ties. Like that's what's different about the US too. Is like, sure, go like these small market people, of course, go like your small market teams, support them, support their players because they're trying to become professionals or they are professionals or whatever it might be. Go support them. But Jordan, people from Philly aren't driving to Pittsburgh to see the Riverhounds. Like I
Well, yeah,
just
that's a.
don't buy that. Like
I
it,
think the Philly Pittsburgh thing you're bringing up is. I mean, we see that with they have separate baseball and football teams. They're
yeah,
totally different
Miami
markets. They're on
Fusion
other
and Inter
sides.
Miami. Like the Miami Fusion Inter Miami exists. People are gonna go watch Lionel Messi, not some makeshift club that they threw in Miami. Like it's just not gonna happen. The Orlando team came from USL because there's nothing that they saw that was going to happen. And I know that's before all this conversation happened, but like I just don't buy like US promotion and relegation doesn't exist in this country because it doesn't work for a capitalistic society. This is a dog eat dog society. England is not. They're not. They're a socialist. They've always operated in a socialistic idea of a government. So has every European, and they've been established before the media companies came in and TV wanted them and Peacock wanted them. MLS has always existed in the world of TV and a world of media and in the world of US capitalism. It's not feasible. There's no chance that USL exists beside MLS because MLS, I think contrary to what you said, I think MLS will be very particular about who they allow, who they say. Could you imagine Robert Kraft going to them and go, listen here, if you sponsor USL and not MLS and my club in New England, then you can forget about your Patriot sponsorship because we'll just move on to another. Because NFL has that ability where the NFL owners can, and basically that will operate where you could have the NFL owners come in and say, no, we're going to put a hard stop to this because this ain't happening. Not in our league. Like this is our league. And maybe it helps MLS because I think MLS could come in and stomp this out real quick and get more buy-in of like, hey, we need to open up the parameters of unlimited fees to sign people. Let players decide when they want it. Like I think this does encourage MLS to do some things differently. I think that's where USL has helped the MLS, but I just don't see where this is possibly, because I don't think MLS is going to allow it. They're like the mob boss. Like, I just don't think they're going to go, sure, yeah, you guys can exist too.
Well, we asked fans and people on Twitter, so let's hear what they had to say. We put a poll up. With USL agreeing to promotion and relegation, will you be more inclined to watch USL now? 46% say yes, 23% said maybe, and 31% said no. Will you watch USL or MLS more? 88% said MLS, 12% said USL. If can USL and MLS coexist? This is Logan's argument here. 51% said yes. 25% said maybe, and 24% said no. All right, so you asked me this one in the chat about a Baltimore team. If you were a supporter of a MLS club but don't live in their market, and a new USL D1 team is in your market, you would support. 53% said both, 40% said MLS, and 7% said USL. So that is what the listeners thought here about the situation. So it seemed like, obviously we have a lot of MLS followers. So you have your diehards that always think, don't switch, right? Like if you're a fan of a team. So you get a lot of boths. You get a lot of, we'll watch both, or we'll watch more of this, or
I don't know.
I'll support both.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe. Yeah. So we're getting a lot of those type of answers, but curious about that. Now, you also brought up something about the soccer in the US here, and I just want to kind of bring this up, I guess, because we were going to talk about the Nations League here. So the USA gets knocked out by Panama. Mauricio Pochettino ends up being the first coach that doesn't win the Nations League as the US manager. But a lot of the talk was about the attendance, and I have to give it to CONCACAF here, because the way that they are structuring this, I think this might be more an indictment on them, but I think it also is on just the greater how watched is soccer in the US, right? Because I posted the convo of this game so far is attendance, but I'm not sure why people are surprised. Thursday, 4 p.m. in LA. This game could have been played elsewhere. Here's the other issue that I have with it, Logan. They're playing in the same stadium, which means there's only so many tickets available. And we know how well Mexico fills up their stands. So if they all buy the tickets, why would they show up to the first game? They might still be working. They end up going to the second game at 7:00, and the stadium looks packed, right? Have these at different stadiums. Doesn't have to be in different cities.
Right.
Have them in different stadiums.
Coliseum in LA, the SoFi,
Rose Bowl, and,
right?
SoFi.
Anywhere else,
anywhere. They have opportunities here, but CONCACAF likes this because you know why? It can fill the stadium. If it was like Panama versus Canada, maybe nobody shows up, right? Like we don't know what the stands look like there. But since it was USA Panama, they're at the first bit of the thing, so they're at 4:00, but it's on West Coast time, and it's also March Madness, right? So you also have the people that already took off the day to watch those games. Maybe they might be at the bars watching those games. I said I am sure the casuals will get behind this team in 2026 World Cup. It happens every 4 years, right? And it does grow every 4 years typically. But the issue is, how do we get them to care outside of a World Cup? I think MLS and USL are doing okay with that with their local markets, getting fans involved. But how do you get them to watch the national team outside of a World Cup on a tournament like the Nations League, which is only in its 4th iteration, doesn't have a lot of history, and we just had the failure of the 2018 World Cup where we didn't qualify that really hurt this team. Then we have the World Cup in 2022, which kind of stepped forward, but then a disaster in Copa America last year that ends up getting the manager fired, getting a new manager. We have superstar players like Pulisic who are known worldwide, and people still are not turning on the game. Part of it is it's on Paramount Plus. You can't watch this anywhere else right now. But what else can we do to get people I don't even think winning a World Cup would help drastically. Like, I think it would help a bit, give them a little
Yeah.
bit of a bump. But the women have won World Cups, and they've won like 4. And people watch the women, but they don't still like soccer still isn't the number one sport in the country because the women have won the World Cup.
Right.
Even if the men win the World Cup, I think there's just something about the way the older generation was taught that it is a communist sport that
Yeah.
they will not
Yeah.
watch unless if it's a World Cup. That's where you get your biggest boost. And then
Yeah.
you have your hardcore fans or your local fans that show up to the local team because it's their local team. But how can we get people to watch the U.S. men's national team outside of a World Cup?
I think you might have identified a very interesting point, Jordan, and I'm sure that the marketing folks over at the US Federation are working hard at this. MLS as well, and anybody that's working like USL, like anybody in the inner workings of US soccer. I think you're right. I think there is this stigma that soccer is a diverse sport. So you've got a lot of people in the United States, unfortunately, that are not into the whole diversity thing, as you can see in our country is very relevant today. I think the biggest thing that you have to do when you're trying to grow a fan base, Jordan, it's all about accessibility, location, and getting the young people involved. I think the biggest thing, Jordan, that we could do as a country, and maybe they can figure this out some way, preseason games on college campuses, getting the college involved, getting colleges involved in soccer, because it stems from there, right? Look at college football, look at college basketball. You got to get college soccer there first, I think. And people are like, well, they don't ever produce that much like talent. I'm like, that's nothing. That has nothing to do with it. Look at this short. Like, look at what we're experiencing right now. We're in the midst of March Madness. Like, people are taking off work, people are gambling on it, people are going to hang out in the social events around March Madness. Like, it's all about the youth movement, right? And the old heads are never going to like soccer. They're stuck in their NASCAR, NFL, MLB, sometimes NBA heads. They're never going to watch this. So right now, I think what the US needs to do, and this is going to be a slow growing thing, but Jordan, I can remember when World Cup came on, our college actually had like viewing parties for it. College of Charleston did, because we were a big soccer campus. Indiana University, I know for a fact, is one of the best collegiate soccer teams and programs in the whole country. They have watch parties. I think that's where you have to start. Get some of these MLS ambassadors to go to US soccer, or sorry, to college campuses and say, "Hey, here's our product." Like, get it out there in the marketing world of like, we need young people. Get on TikTok. Like, have the US men's national team do some crazy TikToks. Like, you got to start there. And like you said, Jordan, I really do. I think, and I said this in our argument with USL, the US men's national team is by far the most popular soccer team based in the United States, because you see it every 4 years, Jordan. It's like this country comes alive out of a slumber all of a sudden. People watch the World Cup. It is
And
massive.
make note, Logan said based in the U.S. because people would say, of
Yeah.
course, the Mexico national team is
Right.
they are
Yeah.
the most
Yes.
followed. But
Yes.
you said based, so
Based
I
in the
don't want to
US.
hear comments
Yes.
saying that. But yeah,
Yes. Thank you. Thank you for that. But yeah, I think that's ultimately what it's got to be. I think the US has to figure out some way to play some of these teams, host some of these teams in Hispanic speaking. So go to Miami and play a tournament outside of Copa with some of these South American teams or some of the island teams. Like, you got to figure out ways to infiltrate markets that are predominantly Mexican in the West Coast. You've got to get into the colleges and in the high schools. Um, you've got to do something where you're enticing younger players to play soccer instead. You've got a great chance right now. MLB and NBA are suffering with their ratings because it's just boring. You've got NFL, who's always going to dominate, but I think you could partner with an NFL, because MLS and NFL have the same owner. It's like one of the only leagues that has the same owners. Like, you don't see NFL owners owning baseball teams as well. NFL and MLS, you do see some crossover there, where I think NFL is big enough globally and big enough in the United States, especially, to help grow US like to grow soccer too. Like, that you could find some kind of partnerships there where, like Kun Aguero would come over from the Premier League and like was on Dallas Cowboy social media. And there's tons of Dallas Cowboy fans that are now Man City. Like, I think you got to find those opportunities, Jordan, to really grow the fan base. And I think it starts with the youth movement. young people right now are looking for somewhere to attach themselves to with sports, and the U.S. men's national team has a chance. Kevin Sullivan is who you attach that boat to. Pulisic, who you attach that boat to. Timothy Weah, Josh Sargent. Like, yes, they play European soccer, but you've got to be able to attach them to the United States and the youth. And I'm just not sure we're there yet. We do not put Christian Pulisic on enough commercials. We do not put him in places that he should be. We should have him doing many appearances at Laker games or whatever they might be whenever he's home. Like, have him do, you got to have somebody that's willing to be the face of U.S. soccer, and it's just not there yet. Kevin Sullivan might be your answer. Like, he's 15 now, probably. Like, find some way, because he's going to be that talent. Find some way to use him in the youth movement. So I don't know. We got to find a way to get the youth involved to get more attention here.
Here's what I'll say as well. If you look at what is very popular in this country, you mentioned March Madness. You mentioned college football.
Yeah.
You mentioned NFL.
Yeah.
What do they have in common? I'll tell you one thing they have in common. They're on over-the-air TV constantly. The biggest college football games are on ABC, CBS, Fox.
Yep.
The biggest games of the tournament for the NCAA are the CBS games. If you want to know if Florida is playing the 4 seed, it's going to be on CBS that day, right? Not on TBS, not on True TV. It is going to be the big game on CBS. So I know MLS was on over the air for a while, right? It was. And I'm not saying that. I'm saying CONCACAF is just taking the deal that they can, I guess, with Paramount Plus. And obviously they're not going to play them over the March Madness right now, right? They were not going to cut out a spot on TBS or TNT or True TV this time. They were going to put them on Paramount Plus. And that's part of the problem with the Nations League right now, and why it's not probably drawing as well. It always comes during this March tournament. Every freaking year it is on during this tournament. And you have something that has a long-standing tradition already in this tournament.
Masters. Oh, sorry.
Well, you have that too. Yeah, I mean,
because you said the long-standing tradition. That's their slogan.
But I mean, like, March Madness is a big tradition. Everybody is, gotten on. Like you said, they call out
everybody in the world.
In the US, people fill out a bracket and don't even follow the sport, right? Like, it is what it is. But so kind of circling back to USL a bit here, that their championship did draw really well, almost on par with MLS's championship on the over-the-air side of things. So and we saw that with the executives in the survey, right? They said, get back on the over-the-air channels. That might be the way forward. We have to keep going here. We see it with MLB. MLB teams want to be back on over-the-air channels instead of the cable things, because that is dying. So there's ways to get out in front of it. But a lot of the biggest standing traditions we have are over-the-air CBS, Fox, ABC, NBC. The NBA is going back to NBC, right? Like, we have tons and tons and tons of proof that shows, hey, if people are cutting cable, they're still buying an antenna, right? To maybe try to get these channels that they can get without having to subscribe to something. And then you have the old people like my grandmother, that have no cable anymore or whatever, or just a few select channels. My grandfather, who doesn't have cable or whatever, and only has a few select channels, and they're going and getting antennas, and they're trying to get channels over the air, and they've lost connection with some of those MLB teams because they're not over the air, but they still watch the NFL games because guess what? It's on CBS, it's on Fox, it's easily accessible. Do that on USL level. MLS has to, we just saw Charlotte is actually making a deal with one of their local over-the-air channels to air replays of their games 48 hours later. Which is allowed by the Apple deal. So find ways to get your team in front of the thing. U.S. soccer couldn't really do anything about this because it was a CONCACAF decision with the split stadium, same stadium, really bad start times, dealing on Paramount. But what I'll say is, U.S. soccer probably has the capability to maybe lean on CONCACAF a bit and say, hey, we got it. They host almost every tournament over here, so we have some say, right? Maybe tell them, we need to start having separate stadiums because we want our fans in the stadium. That might be ways to go about it. But
do you see like we'll see tonight, the night of this recording on Sunday, the US play Canada, which
as a matchup, we won it. The
which
matchup we
honestly,
won it for a different
honestly,
reason.
the matchup we wanted, not in that consolation game,
No.
but I think bigger implications as far as like I still think those two are the best two teams in CONCACAF, no matter how they played. I still think that they've got the talent, and we can talk a little bit about that. Where I'm not like jump off the bridge kind of thing like everybody else seems to be. I'm like, okay, Panama has our number. They tend to beat us. But like Jordan, the reason why I want to talk about that was like I'm hoping tonight because it's a 6 p.m. start. It's 3 p.m. Eastern time in LA. Although,
Pacific time.
Yeah, sorry, Pacific time. Thank you. I think that I
it's
still
a Sunday though. Like it's a little easier to fill 3
right.
p.m. on
That's
a
what
Sunday than
it's
than
still
4
March
p.m. on a
Madness though.
Thursday.
Like March Madness is still going, and there's big teams playing today. So I'm assuming, and plus US is now in the consolation bracket, so it's not as exciting to go to those games. So I wonder if it'll do a little bit better just because it's on the weekend. I'm interested to see.
It might, because I think some fans for the US would have bought tickets for it thinking we were going to be the late game. So I do think some will show up to this.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see how it shakes out, tonight with attendance and all that. I am not as look. I saw somebody say USMNT thoughts said that, is this the third worst? Is this like the third biggest disaster in modern U.S. soccer history? And he listed failing to qualify for 2018, and then the Copa America. And I would say depends on what you consider modern, because I think there's some gold cups that we've under Bradley and Klinsmann that we lost to Panama or Jamaica, and like that shouldn't have been happening back then, especially because I feel like our I think the thing is people have overrated this generation of players because they are playing overseas.
Yeah.
And they do not have the same sort of grit and determination that like the 2010, the 2014 team had.
They don't have dogs. Yeah, they don't.
So I can't say that this is the third biggest modern disaster or anything. Like it Copa was, because it was like, oh dang, like we should have gotten out of that group.
Yeah.
But this is like, it's the fourth Nations League. We've won the last three. Pochettino just started his job.
Right.
We got a Gold Cup coming up for him to see what he's got. Like, I think his subs weren't great. Obviously, that is like, what was he doing with that? But it's, hey, what we're seeing what works right now, and I'm not. The big thing is next year. If we fail in that, then we will have set back our nation soccer.
100%. Like I like when people say, "Oh," then they're panicking. Like this is the word. Like blah blah blah. This generation was this. Yes, on paper is the best generation. Yes, this is the most European presence we've ever had. U.S. men's national team side. Yes, all of our players are pretty. That whole starting 11 was pretty much all European based, or at least top tier based. But that being said, Jordan, the talent is growing. We're still not there. There still are a lot of people. I think this next round, Jordan, because this is like that foundational piece again. Like we've just now set the foundation. This is now the floor. This is probably the worst team that we'll have in the next 10 years, like by far. Like we'll look back at this team and go, oh man, yeah, we were really at the bottom of the barrel, because now we've got guys that are some of the world-class players. Like Christian Pulisic, don't be fooled by the fact that he's playing in Serie A. He's been one of the best players in Europe when healthy this year. Like he's been
he's playing great.
Yes.
The issue is, right, like
he doesn't have friends to play with.
Well, that, and we also have like, we do have to talk about probably the fact is that this I don't think Pulisic falls under this camp, but for some people, this is their escape from their from their club team, and they're not. That's not their employer. Are they caring as much? We don't know, right? Like, we probably do need some hungrier people in the camp, because it's been the same sort of crew constantly that we've been getting.
People aren't threatened by for their jobs. Like,
yeah.
But now, Jordan, like you said, Ajiman, like he's looked great in MLS. He's probably been one of the top players in MLS this year. Like Ajiman is somebody that could threaten Josh Sargent. Like they need competition. We don't have that yet. We're going to get there. we just don't have that yet. Like, we don't have people fearing for their jobs. Like, we need, but that's the other thing too, is like, if you look at the England roster, Jordan, there's constantly debate going, oh my gosh, this guy should have been involved and he's like top tier player. And you're like, oh my gosh, like they're leaving off Phil Foden or like, somebody like that. We're leaving off like Christian Roldan. Like, it's not, there's apple and oranges when you're trying to compare the two. It's just, we're not there yet. This is a great floor. This is, Jordan, this team is still a round of 16 team. Like, this is 100% a top 16 team in the world. That's impressive, and consistently top 16. Panama, you always have those teams too, Jordan, even in league play. Like, Orlando City's thorn in their side always tends to be a team that you're like, well, they shouldn't be a thorn in their side, but they are. It's like, well, they always present a challenge. Like, Toronto, for some reason, has always presented some kind of weird challenge for Orlando City. Red Bull, like, they're just a thorn. And when you run up against them, they're going to be an issue because your style does not match up well against them. Panama, the style of them just sitting back and camping out is a complete, like, if I was defending the U.S. men's national team, Jordan, I would sit every single defender inside the box and say, good luck to you. Like, good luck creating something, because you're never getting in here. Like, they don't have that in the box finisher. They just don't have that. And Panama knows that. So they just sit back, camp, and the U.S. has always struggled to create. Like, we always struggle to create. We always score on a counter or something miraculous. Like, think back to the goals that have won us the last couple of nation leagues, Jordan, are those finishes that they've been in extraordinary strikes to send us into the next round. So, yeah, like we've got a lot of room to grow, but I am not by any, like, we have seen tremendous growth. We are going in the right direction, and it's a young team still. We're still figuring it out. So we'll see. But I'm not too worried. I'm really not. This is a round of 16. I think it could be a round of 8 team too, because it's on home soil. But next year, if you're talking to me and we're like, we got bounced out in the group stages, then I'd be like, okay, yeah, now,
yeah,
reset it all, get rid of them all. Like, don't let
Yep. That would
see
if we get like bounced out on the
Yep.
group stage next year, it's time to like really sit down and do what we did after the or go even further than we did when we failed to qualify for 2022 for 2018, and just like burn it down.
Yeah.
Burn it down, start
Clean out all of the directors, all the scouting director, like, clean house.
New president, everything.
Yep.
Like,
Pochettino
we would need everything.
gone. Like, Pochettino would be gone probably if he got bounced out of the group. We'd probably be looking for another coach. I wonder if Pep's available. He might be soon if they keep playing.
He might
like
be
that.
by then. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I guess we'll wrap it up there. We'll have more like actual MLS talk and talk about that later in the week when we have a time to discuss that. But just wanted to get this big discussion out. I didn't think we would go 45 minutes on that, but we did. Okay. Well, at Stateside Show on all of our social medias, leave your comments below if you think that we are in a good shape here for the U.S. men's national team going forward. What would you fix? Let us know your thoughts on the USL promotion relegation news, and we'll catch you all next time.